I have 27 mugshots as a result of drug addiction and alcoholism. Because of my choices to choose to stay in the disease has cost me everything. I've lost my family, I've lost my company, I've gone bankrupt.
Less than a year ago, Michael Moulton was a different person.
On 7/7/17, I had a spiritual, supernatural, bright light moment awakening while incarcerated in Dallas County Jail, and surrendered my life to God and Jesus Christ, who I call him today.
3 months ago, after his awakening moment, he was accidentally released from jail.
The judge said that obviously there's someone bigger than me working in your life. I don't want to get in the way. I would like for you to put together a self-correct program and go pay it forward.
Gather round. I said gather round, baby.
And I've been on a mission and on a journey that God has directed me on to go help others. I no longer want to be, well known. I no longer want to be a big home builder. I no longer want to keep up with the Joneses. So I use my spiritual gifts, and that's my voice. That's my passion towards recovery.
Now, as the host of M2 The Rock Radio, he's reaching out to others to share his story.
Where we talk about drug addiction, alcoholism, hurts, habits, and hang-ups. We're not bad people. This show is not about getting good. This show is all about getting well. It's raw, it's real, it's uncut. We got great guests. I mean, it's the truth.
Between messages, thanking him and asking for help, he says the answer for him is simple.
What's different this time is forgiveness. And true acceptance has no resentments. That's the number one offender that everybody relapses back and goes back on.
He has a message for those watching or listening right now.
So for the one who is out there that's suffering, I challenge you, you can do it by yourself. Social media is great. Find someone, listen to their story, okay? Listen for the similarities, not the differences. This disease, it's cunning, it's baffling, it's powerful, and here's the scary thing, it's patient.
You can listen to M2 on 1190 AM radio Monday through Friday from 7 to 8 p.m. or on Saturday and Sunday from noon to 1. He also live streams on his Facebook page, M2 The Rock. He says you're always welcome to send him a social media message if you have any questions or concerns or just need someone to talk to. For Real News, I'm Sarah Strackhouse.
Gather round, gather round, gather round, clowns. Michael Moulton, M2 The Rock. We're coming to you live from Dallas, Texas, D-Town, baby. The 214. You know I say 214, don't you?
Tell me.
Area code.
Oh, well, yeah, I knew that.
Area code 214. So when you're in prison, it's like, where are you from? I'm from the 214. D-Town, baby. Big D. The dirty D. Welcome to the show. Guess what we talk about on this show?
I think I know.
Well, can I say it?
Please.
We talk about drug addiction. We talk about alcoholism. We talk about hurts, habits, hang-ups. We talk about recovery. We talk about honesty, dishonesty, resentments, anger, paranoia. We talk about suicide awareness, treatment centers. We talk about process addiction. Melissa Engel talked about that last night. Process addiction, that's a new one. I've come to the conclusion that we're all addicts. We're all addicted to something, but most importantly on this show, we talk about solutions. And we're going to bring you some solutions today. We have the great Amara Durham on tonight. You just pulled the trifecta. It's your third time on the show.
I thank you for having me. I'm going to keep coming back because it works if you work it.
That's right. It works if you work it. And I'm so glad that you're here. Amara Durham from Amara Durham, almost like construction, that too. Amara Durham Consulting. Welcome to the show. We're coming to you live from the DFW Coin and Jewelry Studio. The DFW Coin and Jewelry Studio, the home of M2 The Rock, brought to you by, we can't say enough, Healing Springs Ranch, the great Healing Springs Ranch. We're on the 417th floor overlooking downtown Dallas. What do you think about this? We're way up here.
I'm just saying, I hope it takes as long to go up as it does to go down.
Well, we got to work an honest program, so I was lying. So we're actually on the first floor. But I fell a long way. I tell everybody that. I make sure everybody sees where I fell from right there. Right there's where I fell.
And you're walking very well now.
Broke my leg, so I am walking well. So welcome to the show, and I want to address something real quick before we get started. I've been getting text messages, and I've been getting a lot of messages privately about something that I talk about on the show a lot. So I saved this to kind of surprise you.
Can't wait.
You love it, right?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
a lot of people have been asking that I always suggest on the show that in recovery, it's suggested that men work with men and women work with women. And they ask me, why is that? Why do I always suggest that? I say that in every show, that it's so powerful in long-term recovery. What is your feedback on that? I have my feedback. And why do women work in early recovery? Women work with women and men work with men.
Well, I think in any moment in recovery, I think it makes best sense to work with someone with whom you identify by gender.
Yeah.
And I think that's critical because those hurts that happen, those experiences that you have, they're relatable by gender. Mm-hmm. If I'm a mom and I worry about leaving my kids, or I worry about how I can nurture them but not be enmeshed with them, those concerns are something another mom can really relate to. If I'm a guy and I've got to make amends and I'm coming from a place of shame, I want to talk to another man.
Right.
Who gets what it's like to have this perception I've got to be the breadwinner and I've got to be the strong man. So I think in that respect of identifying with each other and what one relates to, I think it's important. And the other thing is we don't want anyone having an intimate relationship with someone who's holding them accountable. And if you think about someone who's genuinely working the steps, whether they're Al-Anon or AA, they're being so real and emotionally vulnerable that it is going to be a connection. It's not a first date when we're talking to people where we're saying, how's the weather? And how do you take your coffee? This is, let me tell you my deepest, darkest secret. So you have this very quick bond.
Yeah.
And if you're bonding with someone of the opposite gender, very often that gets misconstrued to a romantic intimacy rather than just rigorous honesty.
That's exactly right. And, you know, we talk about in recovery, the number one offender why people relapse is resentments. And how you talking about set myself up for resentment, getting in an early relationship, working with a female in early recovery. How can I have a relationship or have a conversation with a female when I don't even know who I am?
Absolutely.
Right? And so what happens is I do step one, I get honest, all right? And step two, I start feeling this power greater than myself. I get some hope, all right? I think I start feeling better. And then I still have that void trying to get to know myself. And I meet a girl in recovery and we're going to get sober together. And guess what happens? She becomes my higher power. She becomes my drug of choice. I become her drug of choice, and we start leaning on, can you say codependency?
Absolutely. And now let's take this into the family system.
Yeah.
So let's take it, addiction's a family disease.
Right.
So you've got someone, whether it's the child or the spouse, who's going through this process of hopefully working with the 12-step and 12 traditions. Do they turn to their spouse for that accountability? Do they turn to their spouse for their for any of this? No. My goodness gracious. You've got to turn to someone within the program who's the same gender as you so that you can have those conversations. And I'm hoping your spouse is also working in the 12 steps and traditions, and they're sharing their own ills because you're not in a place to share your resentments. You're not in a place to be rigorously honest with each other and not have that resentment rear up. So it works just even within the same household. Forget even dating, which we say don't do in your first year.
Right.
Being with a spouse, that is not your sponsor.
Right.
It's got to be someone with same gender.
That's exactly right. And that's what, so we suggest that's been suggested to us by people who have been working this program a long time is, 1 year before you get a relationship. But most importantly, what we recommend is work all 12 steps. Mm-hmm. And once we work all 12 steps and having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we start hearing and seeing God, and we have a relationship with God, and we realize, wow, I don't know how this could be any better, having a relationship with God. And then what happens is God will put that person right in your path.
Yeah, they call addiction a disease. Yeah. It's a dis-ease of the soul, right? So if we're going to deal with the hole in our soul, are we going to get that from a higher power of our understanding or a person? Right. And if we don't fill that hole in the soul very quickly with a higher power of our understanding, anything else is just a poor substitute. Right.
Well put. So I wanted to address that great question that was brought by our followers, and very well handled. That was very good. Amara Durham Consulting. Before we get into it, kind of introduce us to you. Who are you? What do you do? What is Amara Durham Consulting?
Well, so it's a big mouthful. What I do is I help families where there's a problem, and I'm a fixer. You pick up the phone and you call me and you say, I have a problem. I'm not really sure what the problem is, but it looks like, smells like, sounds like, and can you help me out? At that point, I bring together teams of experts to do everything from assessment, intervention, referral to treatment, advocacy during treatment, because squeaky wheel gets that grease, and then where the real work begins, aftercare planning and accountability. So really having a cohesive plan for the whole family. And so I want to make sure I make this point. Someone calls me about somebody having a problem. Hey, my husband, my son, my daughter.
Here we go.
However, that identified patient is only one piece of that jigsaw puzzle.
What do you mean by that?
The whole family system.
Ah.
It is the entire system. A family is like a jigsaw puzzle. And I often tell my clients, if we think there's an identified patient and we pull that one piece of the puzzle out and we send it away and we say, okay, go change your shape. Go become something else. Learn more about yourself. Find recovery. And we bring them back to the puzzle, and the puzzle itself never changed shape. What's that piece of puzzle going to do? It wants to fit in. It's going to go back to its old ways, old shape, so it fits in. Addiction and mental health are family diseases.
Yes.
We have all started a dance to accommodate the one in our family who is acting outwardly out, whether it is with alcohol, drugs, gambling, sex, pornography, or there's depression or bipolar or manic, whatever that may look like. We all begin to move into new roles to accommodate that behavior. And so what I do is say, if you want to work with me, you need to understand that the identified patient, your loved one, they're not going to be the only one working. In fact, I won't work with you as a family unless the whole family system agrees to be a part of the solution.
But Amara, I just want you to fix him. Why am I? He's the one that has the drinking problem. I don't have a drinking problem, and I need you to fix him so I can go to work.
Yeah,
you hear that at all?
I hear it all the time. I could retire if I had a magic wand to do that. And the reality is that's not at all how it works. Yes, your loved one may have a drinking problem, but the fact that you're concerned that you can't go to work is your problem. That is reflective of your perhaps codependency with that individual. If he's bad, I'm bad. If he's okay, I'm okay. That may also be reflective of your enabling. I'm going to cater to him. I'm going to make sure he gets his meals because he's not drinking, or he's drinking, or I'm going to make sure he eats because when he uses, he doesn't. And I'm using he, it could be a she.
Right.
So I think that what really we're looking at is the reality of the family system. There becomes a stance. In fact, there's the addictive family system model where you have this identified patient who is an addict, and then there are one of many roles others take on. There can be the family hero, and that's the one who says, I'm going to do everything right now, and I'm not going to cause any extra trouble, and my mom or my dad or my siblings are already stressed out, and I'm going to behave. Then you can have someone else in this family system who is the lost child. It can be a pejorative term. It can sound awful. But what the clinicians mean is it's the one who says, I'm flying below the radar. I'm going to be at my friend's house. I'm going to hide out, or I'm going to stay late at work. I'm just going to remove myself so that I'm not adding to the trauma and drama of this family system.
Interesting.
Got a family enabler. Someone's making it possible for all of this to happen. We've got a caretaker, someone who's actually bringing home the bread to make it all work. And then very often you even can have a class clown. Who's the one that tries to make it light and happy and fun and distract everyone from it? Right. And so if that sounds a little bit like your friend group or your family dynamic or your workplace environment, where we tend to mirror these dysfunctional family systems, that's roles everyone's taking on to deal with the pressure of someone who is suffering, to deal with what the suffering person needs, or to escape from it in an avoidant way.
Beautiful. Amara Durham Consulting. When we come back, we're going to take us out all the way, because I'm going to start up something that's going to just tee you up to go off. We are going to walk through the process. Right. When somebody calls Amara Durham, we're going to walk through the process of getting that person help. Michael Moulton, M to the Rock. We'll be right back.
Healing Springs Ranch is designed for people that really want to come and do the work. And not just work on their addictive behaviors, but going deeper and finding the underlying issues and sharing them, and oftentimes for the first time sharing them out loud, kind of dumping out everything that's holding you back. And in the process, what we try to do is nurture and heal that particular wound while they're here. We really wanted this to be a transformative experience for people, not just a drying out place or a place where they go and check off a box. We truly wanted this to be an opportunity for everyone to take a pause in their life and figure out what they need to do to go live their purpose. So we're very passionate about folks finding purpose and meaning to why they exist, and finding ways to utilize that purpose and meaning for them to go on and actually have a more successful and happier life.
Welcome back. Michael Moulton with Amara Durham. Amara Durham Consulting coming to you from the DFW Coin and Jewelry Studio, the home of M2 The Rock, brought to you by, we just saw it, the Great Healing Springs Ranch.
Amazing.
What a great place.
They are one of the few places that truly understand that addiction is not just about the guy can't put down the drink, but also, and I keep saying guy, I mean anyone, but they get the trauma.
Yeah.
They understand trauma and how it relates to it. And it's about being uncomfortable and not being able to handle our emotions. And they use treatment modalities to truly understand the underlying feelings behind it. I work with them frequently.
They're incredible. I was there all day today doing my groups there, and it's just so refreshing that they allow me to work with them, and it gets to help me. And, it's so powerful. One drug addict working with another, one alcoholic working with another. What a great day at Healing Springs Ranch. So hello, everyone out there who's watching at Healing Springs Ranch tonight. Thanks again, Melissa, for being on last night. What an incredible woman. She talked about pain in the brain. So go back and watch that show again and check it out. Amara Durham Consulting. You want to talk about the drama triangle.
Yeah.
What is that? The drama triangle.
It is the chaos in which we often live. And I think it's so important. This applies to anyone, whether it's an addictive family, whether it's mental health, or whether you've got a 13-year-old kid. When I talk to kids, I use this a lot. The official term that makes me sound like I know what I'm talking about is the Karpman drama triangle.
Okay.
Karpman. And what it says is we operate in a maladaptive relationship in a triangle. And when we're sucked into a maladaptive relationship, and
what's maladaptive mean? That's a big word. So Randy and I need to know what that means.
I love it. Okay, a maladaptive relationship means someone wants to manipulate me.
Oh,
someone
gotcha.
wants me to pick up the other end of that rope and play tug of war.
I got you.
And I don't want to.
I got you. Okay.
Because I'm not going to win.
All right.
So what we want to do instead is to recognize, wait, am I getting into a power struggle? Am I all of a sudden involved in being manipulated? And if I'm dealing with an addict, high likelihood. Mm-hmm. So how do I recognize that?
Okay.
Well, what we know is that there's 3 roles. If your addict comes to you and starts acting like a victim, poor pitiful me, I can't eat, I don't have a job, I don't know what I'm going to do for the roof over my head, poor pitiful me.
They're doing it to me.
Yeah, right. It's the system.
Yeah.
And so what ends up happening is when we are codependent, when we are trying to jump in and fix for someone else, when we are trying to work harder than someone else, we step right on in and we want to rescue.
Right.
The minute we recognize, hold on, in this dynamic, there's a victim and there's a rescuer, and I'm rescuing, that's not healthy. The other thing that will happen is once I start to realize I'm supposed to be rescuing and I don't want to, and I back up a bit using some neutral language like, wow, you may be right, but have you considered? Right? What ends up happening when we back up, that victim whips around and they become a persecutor. And it is your fault.
Yes.
Your fault. You aren't helping me. The system is broken. Your fault. And they're blowing everybody up. Wow. That's when you know all of a sudden we're in a drama triangle and my victim just shifted to persecutor. And now all of a sudden I'm sitting here going, hold on, am I the victim here? Am I supposed to rescue the persecutor?
What is happening?
What is happening?
Right.
And you know it, and you know it in your gut. And what I tell my clients is the minute you feel that in your gut and you immediately want to jump in and help, and you think, okay, well, this has worked in the past, I want you to do the opposite.
And what is that?
That is, if it feels good and I did this in the past, I can assure you it's probably wrong.
Okay.
So the definition of insanity.
Doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results.
Absolutely. So if I want to jump in and rescue, this time I say, you know what? I trust that you're going to figure this out. I believe that you have the capacity to figure it out. And I love you. And you're out. you don't get sucked into that dynamic where you're either going to be persecuted or that individual's going to act like a victim, or you've got to go in and rescue.
Now, what you just said right there and what you just described that there in role play right there sounded very good. It sounded very healthy. How does that person learn to do that?
It's got to be a habit.
Yeah.
It's got to be a habit. And the only way to make that a habit is you've got to recognize the signs. You've got to recognize in any conversation, again, regardless of your age, when this person's coming at me, is there a whole lot of victim speak here? Mm-hmm. And what I might do is I might really stink at empathetic listening. What's that? That means I'm going to get sympathetic. Oh, bless your heart. I'm so sorry. And let me just tell you about my day. It was worse. Or, well, why'd you do that? None of that's helpful. None of that's helpful. You're either persecuting them for feeling the way they're feeling, so now you just change roles,
right,
or you're just jumping right in that mud pile with them.
Huh.
Instead, empathetic listening says, sounds like it was really rough.
Yeah.
And if they're all wound up, they're going to say, what are you talking? You don't know rough. You don't know rough. And it'll go on. And, golly, now I get it. Wow. And that's it. Yes, no, wow, you may be right.
And yes is a complete sentence, right?
Yeah, yes is a sentence and no is a sentence. Yeah. And so now all of a sudden we are not getting sucked in. We're not picking up the end of the rope and getting in a power struggle of who had it worse or how we're going to help them. We're just going to let them know, we believe in you.
Yeah.
You can do this. And the problem is many times families have stepped in so many times, they have stolen the opportunity for their loved one to prove to themselves and to the family that they can do it.
That's a really good point right there, what you said, because a lot of times when people are the addict or the alcoholic, let's just talk about those two things, are in recovery, they're working a program, and when they're released from inpatient treatment, they come home to a toxic house that the codependent is so full of resentment still and has no program and no tools. And they just, and like you just said, it starts all over.
Exactly.
It starts all over.
Exactly. And that takes me to, so what happens when they call me? What is the first thing I say is I'm so glad you've reached out. This was the hardest thing you did. From here, you've got a partner. You've got a teammate. And that's what makes the difference because we feel so alone. As the addict or the one watching someone suffer, there is nothing more lonely. And we're powerless. But we refuse to admit it. If I just do this, if I just say this, if I don't say this, if I just tiptoe or speak on eggshells, it will be okay. And it doesn't work that way. And so the first thing is, thanks for having the courage to ask for help. It's the bravest thing you're going to do.
Right.
And now, what do we need to do?
Where do we go from here?
Where do we go from here?
Now that I've got Amara Durham Consulting on the phone, where do we go from here?
And I think the first thing that families need to understand is if they want help with someone like me or someone who's going to come in and say, hey, look, this is how it works, the whole family has to be in.
Okay.
So the first thing I say is the whole family has to be in. And if your children are grown and away,
Let me stop you a second,
way.
Miss Durham. Okay,
Yes.
You're saying the whole family has to be in.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
What that looks like is if you're going to work with me or you want success for your family and you're going to do this on your own, that means that whole family needs to do a mental health check-in with a provider, either a therapist, they need to go to an Al-Anon or a Families Anonymous or a Parents of Addicted Loved Ones meeting. They need to be speaking their truth to someone who understands it so they can get a read on it. It can be their pastor, their minister, their rabbi, whomever it is. They need to do a check-in to say, am I crazy? Because at some point we are so detached from what's normal in quotes, and what's addictive thinking and addictive behavior. So working with a young man yesterday, the whole family looks at me and they said, we don't know what normal is anymore. And I said, well, this is age-appropriate abstinence. He's 14. Let him individuate. On the other hand, stealing, not so age-appropriate, right?
There's consequences for that.
Yeah, and you know them.
Yeah.
So the reality is we've got to get a check-in of where are we on this metric as a whole entire family. And then we've got to get disentangled. we become so fused, so codependent, so enmeshed in this to make the family system work that we've got to break apart and say, okay, your loved one needs a teammate because they're super lonely. Let me align with them. Let me help them out because I'm not going to judge them. And they know that.
Right.
And they know I'm all in to invite them to the help. And then in the meantime, let's get each one of you checked in with someone. And then what I do is coordinate all that communication. So I make sure that each individual is matched to a specific therapist that can be helpful. Same style, same faith if it's important, same way in which they identify socioeconomically, same gender if necessary, understanding specialties. And then I say, okay, here's the community groups to plug into. So you have people to support you. And then I work with that addict, inviting them to get help. Instead of clobbering over the head and saying everyone's sick and tired of you, why don't we say, hey, it looks like you're hurting, and I bet you're sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Right.
So how can I help you?
Right.
Where can I meet you where you're at right now? And let's get some help. And by the way, let's put all these other people out of the role of police chief and detective and breathalyzer and put them back into mom, dad, and son and boss, and let them go back to roles where you can regain your dignity.
Right. And it's so funny because it's not funny, but we all become so sick in this disease. And I love how you say the policeman, the detective. You know, you're staying up at night, you're checking your son or daughter's room, your husband's room, their cell phone. You're wanting to know everything that they're doing, where you're just so mentally obsessed about what is going on to try to save their life, and you're literally going crazy.
You're literally addicted to the addict.
And what's happening is what about the addict that does go to treatment, comes back and is working a program, and you are still behaving the same way? The addict, the walls start going up. You know, as an addict, and I can relate to this, as an addict, what happens is I'm like going, I'm working my program, all right? She's not. Now my walls are going up. I'm starting to lie to her again. I'm starting to hide my phone again. I'm not drinking and drugging, and then I give up. So I can't take it anymore. So
then I'd say, hey, Michael, are you taking her inventory? Because if you're staying in your lane and you're working your program,
that's right,
then we don't want to start scoreboarding or taking someone else's inventory. And we work our program and we figure out, where does that land when I decide I'm working my program? Where does that leave me with my loved one?
Right.
But if you're working a very holistic approach to recovery, when that loved one comes home, then that entire family system's been working their own program, either with a professional or in a support group or a 12-step tradition, then they come home to a different dynamic. But what you haven't asked me is, what happens when the addict says, I'm not going?
Let's talk about that.
All right. So the addict says, I'm not going.
Not going where?
I'm not going to rehab.
Gotcha.
I'm not going to a therapist. I'm not going to AA. I don't have the problem. She does. And it happens all the time. And the reality
if you were married to her, you'd drink too.
I got that one last night.
Did you?
I got that one last night.
I can't believe your husband said that to you.
There are days. There are days.
Yeah.
Oh, and so here's the reality is, we're not going to be successful all the time.
Right.
And that's okay, as long as we plant a seed, as long as we put the idea in there that there is hope and there is help. Then when they're ready, they'll take it. But we're not going to waste a bunch of time and treasure on forcing someone. Now, we may externally motivate them. We may say, you can't see the kids, you can't drive the kids, you can't come to family events,
right,
you can't show up at school. There's all sorts of external motivations, right? You can't have a bedroom door if you're a kid. Lots of external motivations. And sometimes external motivations become internal motivations.
Right.
Exhibit A.
Right.
So my point is this. If that individual's not ready to go, by gum, that whole family's got to take care of itself. That means the spouse needs to hit Al-Anon, needs to hit Families Anonymous, needs to find the therapist. Because what will happen is there will become this strength. And there will be a surrender, if you will, the same 12 steps and traditions, where God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can.
And the wisdom to know the difference.
So that family has got to hit serenity. And it is difficult. You have had guests on this show. Cynthia Smoot was a wonderful spokesperson for this process. Yeah. It is difficult to let go. Remember I said do the opposite? We want to pull them close. and all we're doing is suffocating.
When we get in fear, we want to control more.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's what we talked about with Cynthia on the show. And it was an awakening for me that I had a couple of weeks ago that, I was fighting fear. And I felt like I was being a control freak. And I was trying to be in control because I was in so much fear,
Absolutely.
And so what I had to do is I had to get honest. Step one. I had to get honest, and I had to address it and look at it. And I had to look at what role I played in it, and it was fear-based.
Yeah, and I tell families a lot that when they are going through this, and there are two fundamental emotions. Let's start there. Two fundamental emotions,
All right.
love and fear. So every positive experience, every positive emotion comes from love. Mm-hmm. And every negative, if you will, every demonic thought, every negative feeling, fear, begets anger, jealousy, rage, all of those. And so when one is having an active, non-wise mind and an emotional mind, the first thing we do is we've got to stop, breathe, and say, what's this really about? I'm raging. I'm just raging. What's it about? And ultimately, you keep asking us the same question. What's it about? It's about he's drinking. What's that about? Well, he promised he wouldn't. What's that about? Well, we made this agreement. When you drill it down, it's going to come down to one feeling, and it's going to be fear. I'm scared he's relapsing.
Right.
I'm scared I don't know the truth. It will be fear. And so with working with the family system, again, part of that process is let's get what those fears are out on the table. And the converse of that is, what's the goal? What's the opposite of fear is what's the goal? Come from love, the other fundamental emotion. If we're in this loving relationship and offering this opportunity to get help, I say to the family, what is it that you want for your loved one? Or I ask the loved one, what is it you want? And then, what are you willing to do to get it?
Yes.
I can have all kinds of half measures of desires and dreams, but it is nothing without effort. And if I don't have clients putting forth the effort, then it's just dreams.
And when you say clients putting towards the effort, once again, what does that look like? So Johnny goes to Healing Springs Ranch. Mm-hmm. He says, okay, I'm going to go. All right. I'm going to go to Healing Springs Ranch, and I'm going to check myself into residential treatment. I'm going to live there. All right. Mom and dad say, great. Now what happens? What kind of program? Mom and dad say, okay, great. He's in treatment. I've never slept better in my entire life. I've heard that before. When I was incarcerated, God, we slept good when you were in jail. I said, must be nice. I didn't. You know what I mean? But they say that. But what do they do? Because once Johnny goes at Healing Springs day one, mom and dad or husband, wife, whatever the role is, they start treatment that day too.
Well, yeah. In fact, if they're working with me, they're starting ahead of time.
Okay.
Because the moment they engage me, I'm setting each of those family members up with a therapist I've chosen specifically for them. Mm-hmm. And I don't have relationships that are entangled in any way in any of the professionals with whom I work. Mm-hmm. Everything is based on a best fit. Right. Healthcare's a broken system. You don't just Google up. You barely Google up what you want to order for dinner.
Right.
I mean, we're checking Yelp and we're checking people's Instagram. We're vetting it.
Right.
The problem with treatment is you go online and you see nothing but bad reviews. Well, let me just tell you, happy people go on with their lives. Unhappy people write reviews.
Right.
So
it's like Dallas County Jail does not have good reviews. It's all 1-star ratings.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah, look what happens when people come out. Right. So what they're doing is I'm matching them up. They're getting therapy. They're working straight away. Johnny goes to treatment at Healing Springs Ranch or anywhere else. Mm-hmm. I have already picked that specific therapist with whom he's going to work. I have made sure that he is in groups that make sense. If he doesn't have an eating disorder, he's not going to be in an eating disorder group. But by gum, if he's got anger problems, he's going to be working on that clay wall, throwing clay that's in colors, getting that aggression out and processing it. Yeah. If he needs a therapy like ETT that they do there for trauma, we'll make sure he gets that. Med management. Don't over-medicate my client. Don't under-medicate my client. I'm in there advocating, making sure we are watching. What are we coming off of? What are we getting on and why? Don't just drug them up or sedate them, and then don't let them just sit and suffer.
So let me ask you something. So now that you're saying that, I'm coming from the addict. So you're reporting this information back to whom? The loved one, the spouse, the mom and dad?
Great question. So the first call I'm making is every week I'm getting an update from the clinical team.
Gotcha.
I am getting an update that includes medical diagnoses, medications, clinical, group, how's he getting along in the community? And by the way, let's talk about what happens when he leaves from day one.
Come on.
Then I'm every single week talking to the loved ones. If I have permission, I have to have permission from the loved one who's in treatment. I'm giving him an update. Let me tell you what you're doing with your money. Let me let you know how hard your loved one's working, because you don't see it. Right. And so all you think is, I'm writing a big fat check. Resentment. He's not doing anything. He's getting massages and he's having catered food, and I'd love to have a
resentment.
Resentment,
right.
Exactly.
Right.
And the reality is,
and we're not in solution. We're just sitting in the problem.
Absolutely.
Right. I got you.
So if I speak to that family every week and say, listen, he's engaged, he's involved, he's making friends so that he'll have connection that's healthy once he discharges. Mm-hmm. We're figuring out where he's going to go next and have relationship that's sober and healthy relationship afterward. We are making sure that the clinical protocol, I'm pushing it because I'm watching time and treasure. No one has infinite amounts of either. I'm pushing that team. And I am saying, hey, eye on the prize. This is how long I thought it was going to take. We're not on track. What do we need to do?
Wow.
And I am pushing that team. And a good treatment center welcomes it.
Yes.
They collaborate. A bad treatment center is, I don't want to talk to you. Will you take an email update? Absolutely not.
Right.
I won't work with you because my clients deserve more. I'm getting so passionate.
Well, I know. I love this.
This
is really good. This is
and
good.
Then that's
why
not
you're
all.
good.
And that's not all, as they'd say.
Yeah.
Then I got to educate the parents. So I'm not going to rely on them in their busy lives doing everything I've asked them to do. I'm going to hold them accountable. Mm-hmm. But every single week they talk to me, they're going through an educational process. And we're going to talk about addictive family systems and help everyone understand their role. Then we're going to talk about drama, just like I did here, and spend a lot more time on that. Then we're going to talk about how do we express our feelings without popping off and raging.
Right, because I want to do good, but I don't want to say the wrong thing where Johnny's going to twist off and storm out of the house like he used to.
Yes,
right?
And so if I can give you that sentence structure, because you thought you were fabulous at this, and it's so shaming. And you don't even know that it's shaming. You're just doing your best. It's not good enough. If you're doing what you did before, it's wrong. That's how we got here.
Gotcha.
So
yeah, we didn't come here on a winning streak.
No, right?
Yeah.
So then I got to help them every week learn a new skill set, empathetic listening, boundaries, respect. How do you communicate in a way where you're actually digesting the data, handing it back so that you show that you want to meet them halfway? Collaboration, solution talk. It goes on and on. As long as the client's engaged with me, they're going to get new content every single week because they need to learn. And if they're going to work with me, it's the only way. Mm-hmm. I believe that education's power for every single person in that system. And so if it's an adult child and they have left the home, I have a separate call with them. They want to know that their sister's not going to cause more trouble in the family system.
Right.
And they're tired of mom and dad getting beat up by her and wasting all the money on her instead of me, I'm the good child. I haven't done anything wrong.
Yeah. So let me flip the roles now. Now that we've had, let's just paint the picture that we had an intervention, all right? Mm-hmm. And I have made the decision, okay, I'm going to go to treatment. And I go to Healing Springs Ranch, and I leave, and I'm resentful, and I'm like going, okay, I'm going to go to Healing Springs Ranch. I'm going to go try to get well. But Rachel better be working a program. And you are communicating with Rachel my progress in Healing Springs Ranch, okay,
Absolutely.
From the team, right?
Absolutely.
What kind of communication are you having with me to comfort me? Who's comforting me? This is so codependent, but that she's working a program and that I'm not going to get discharged from here and walk right back into a resentful hornet's nest. Are you controlling that where you see that happening going, wait, he's not ready. Okay, y'all are discharging Michael. Yes, he's working a program, but she's not. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first thing to unpack is the scoreboard and taking someone else's inventory.
Right.
All right?
Right.
So the first thing I'd say to you is, okay, Michael, you work on you. I've got Rachel.
Right.
Second thing, I don't work with treatment.
That just made me mad when you said that. It's so good.
I shoot straight.
No, I love it.
I shoot straight.
No, I love it.
Second thing, I don't work with any treatment center that doesn't run a family program. It is a family disease.
Yes.
And I'm going to, just because we're talking about a great treatment center right now, I work with a lot of them. Mm-hmm. But Healing Springs Ranch has an absolute fabulous family program. And you don't even have to be in treatment. They'll actually create a program for people to come to work.
Right.
They had an extraordinarily complicated family system of mine. And they worked so hard and created a second round of family therapy to accommodate their needs.
Wow.
So the second thing I'd say to you is, hey, Michael, I promise you that Rachel's going to participate in the family program because it's a part of the requirement for me to step in and help the family. So you're going to have that opportunity. Now, if we see that there's a greater need, that we can't wait for a family program, when you're ready, and I think Stacy's ready, we'll bring you guys together and we'll do some work by video conference on Zoom or by telephone, and we'll start working while you're there. But we're not going to interrupt your individual work because I'm not going to take a broken person with a broken person and act like I can fix two broken people. I'm just going to have two broken bits.
Right.
So I'm going to ask you to work on your stuff, to trust me that I'm holding her accountable. Your therapist is going to know what's going on because I'm also updating your therapist as to what's happening so that she knows, she's not complying. And you're going to need to process that with Michael.
There you go.
Because Michael needs to understand that this is the other thing to unpack. There is no control. And one of the things you said is, how can I control that? I can't.
Right.
I can inspire it. I can explain it. I can educate you and help you understand why it's absolutely critical, but I can't control you. And that is the most difficult part of my job.
And it's beautiful how you delivered that. Okay. So once again, all right, I want you to reiterate to the people who are watching and listening to this on our podcast and watching it, on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. What are the programs that you recommend that these people get into to learn these tools that you're delivering so beautifully? How can they learn this stuff?
Well, so let me clarify. I work with all treatment centers all over the country. Mm-hmm. I work with families from all over the world. And let me
long-term recovery. After treatment, long-term recovery, what are the support groups that you recommend that do?
So my go-tos, parents of addicted loved ones.
Okay, which the acronym is PAL.
Yep,
right?
And you can find their website. You can find meetings. Mm-hmm. I work with Al-Anon, Families Anonymous, AA, Smart Recovery.
Okay.
Smart Recovery, for those of you who are not familiar, is a program that focuses far less on a higher power. It's more of a dialectical behavioral therapy approach, meaning it's much more of a black and white kind of academic approach.
Okay.
I can work with refuge. I can have clients who work with refuge recovery. You do not have to be a Buddhist. It is just yet another methodology.
Okay.
Smart Recovery is great for people who don't believe in a higher power.
Okay.
And so they have a resource. So these are the groups. I also recommend people go to their places of worship. I think that's incredibly helpful. Mm-hmm. There are online meetings. So for people who are in remote areas or the weather is bad, I highly recommend them hopping online. A big favorite is Codependence Anonymous.
Yeah.
Adult Children of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yes.
So any of these 12-step tradition meetings are incredibly helpful. And then where do you get this information? Well, the first place is if your loved one's in treatment, you ask for it there. Right. So if you're not working with someone like me, I highly recommend that you say to your treatment center, I want information.
Right.
If you are dealing with a loved one who is a young person, I recommend books like The Parallel Process, which is terrific for a young one who is in treatment, and it helps parents walk through in really the same cadence as their loved one.
Right.
So they're doing their work. If there is an adult, I don't know what the issue is. I'll look. Is it narcissism? So I'll be Trapped in the Mirror is a great book.
Right.
Anything by Patrick Carnes is great for process addictions.
Yeah, here we go. Here's Adult Children of Alcoholics Anonymous.
There you
right
go.
Right here. So, and this is one of the literature that Healing Springs gives to all their clients when they go. And then you just said the Patrick Carnes book. This is the gentle path through the 12 steps. Patrick Carnes. So,
yes. So Patrick Carnes is the father of everything related to process addiction. So if it's not a chemical,
right.
Gambling, love, sex, et cetera, it all hits the same part of the brain.
Right.
You know, I love it when someone will say, okay, well, I'm going to go to treatment and I'm going to stop drinking, but I'm still going to smoke weed. Right. Or I'm going to go to treatment, I'm going to give up alcohol, I'm going to give up hard liquor, but I'm going to drink beer.
Right.
It's the same part of the brain. It's the amygdala. It's your pleasure center.
That's why I have 27 mugshots, because I was trying to work my own program.
You're
I
right.
said, you know what? I hear what you're saying. I agree with you. I'm just not going to drink whiskey. I'm going to drink beer. And for some reason, when I would start out drinking beer, at the end of the night, I would drink whiskey. It just happened every single time.
It just happens,
Amazing.
right?
It was amazing how to do it. I always say I wanted to drink like, a normal person. I did. I drank normal every single day, day and night.
Yeah, and there you go.
And couldn't stop. So, I get it.
And so I think it's important to understand that all these things that create pleasure, even caffeine or chocolate, hit the same part of the brain. And so am I saying that if you have to have tons of Diet Coke every day, are you addicted to Diet Coke? Yeah. You're craving it. It's
something to look at.
Try to quit. It's going to give you a headache. So I think that those things are important. And so I got off topic as I want to do, but when you said, what do we do long-term for resources? So you start with your treatment centers. Then you go online and you go to resources that are available online. And again, the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions have great materials that are available online. There are great support groups that are online. There are great Facebook pages.
There's one called M2 The Rock that's kind of good.
There you go. There's M2 The Rock. There's a Facebook page for parents of adult addicts. Go on Facebook and search and join those communities. Anywhere that you can get a sense of community. Normies don't always understand. Normies, people who don't have someone in their life who struggle, and that's when they have a harder time with empathetic listening, meaning identifying with you. Instead, they want to fix it.
Right.
They want to
just don't drink.
Yeah. Yes.
Just don't drink. Why are you picking it up? Just don't pick it up.
Yeah. I have a client yesterday who's a friend, and everyone's on him, and they're saying, well, I don't understand. He just needs to go get a job. Why can't he just go get a job? And why doesn't he just get out of the apartment? And I have had conversation after conversation saying, you are asking a blind man to see.
Right.
He can't. If he could, he would.
So how do you handle that? What are you doing?
I educate the heck out of the loved ones and say, come in love. Don't bully. Help him by saying, I understand that this is difficult. Mm-hmm. So I want to come alongside you. I'll go to an open AA meeting with you.
Right.
Or let me help you and give you job opportunities that you can apply to. And then if you choose not to, when you're ready for help, you'll let me know.
So what I hear you saying this, is that the codependent can also be constitutionally incapable of being honest.
Oh, my word, yes.
Yeah.
Or constitutionally incapable of seeing.
Yeah.
Because it's so clouded in fear.
Yeah.
It is so clouded in a desire to help that it is so maladaptive that it becomes control and rescuing, or it becomes bullying. What did we just call that?
Right.
The maladaptive, the bad, the manipulative relationship. We end up in a drama triangle.
Drama triangle.
Right?
Drama triangle.
There's a victim, and I'm going to bully him into his help, or I'm going to rescue him and resent the heck out of him.
Right. So you're telling me that for the codependent side, there's actually a 12-step program that they work. Does that mean you're suggesting that I get a sponsor just like the alcoholic or addict and work these 12 steps?
Absolutely. Or get a book by Melanie Beatty or Pia Melody. They have wonderful books on codependency. Codependent No More is a great book. Codependency is tough. And I tell you, when I work with families, the reason codependency is tough, particularly with a young adult as the identified patient or a child, but I'm just being a good mom.
Yeah, it's such a fine line.
Or this is what a spouse does. This is my responsibility when I said I do. And that's not. You are supposed to love someone and love them toward that solution. You cannot bully or force them to that solution. And if you don't love yourself enough to figure out how you can be healthy in that presentation, meaning taking care of your own stuff, how can you inspire someone else to be healthy? Got an example.
Here's a tough one. You ready? This is
hope.
real. This is a real one, and I know that you deal with this on a daily basis, all right? We have the codependent side that's working a program, and we have the addict that is working a program. The codependent side sees the pattern starting to happen again. Everybody would always say, Michael, you're so predictable. We see it coming. And it's always, even to the point, my mom would say this the other day. She goes, in November 1st, we were wrecks because for some reason in November, Michael, you just went nuts. Okay. So we see this pattern coming. We start seeing the behaviors. We start hearing it to the point where a phone call is not returned. Just the little mannerisms as your parents, we see it happening. All right. And what happens is that we see our loved one relapse. What do we do as a codependent? You're telling me what my body's telling me, what I feel God telling me to do the complete opposite of what I feel like I should and want to do. Walk me through that. How does that work?
So if someone's relapsing, it's terrifying for the loved one.
Yes. We've worked so hard. We've tried so hard. We've spent all this money. We have changed our life. And then I get resentful. I've changed my life for him or her. And now I'm pissed. I'm resentful. I'm mad.
I've spent my entire savings. I have no funds left to retire.
I'm doing my part. Amara, I'm doing exactly what you're telling me to do.
Yep. And
what do I do?
Well, I'm going to say not only are you angry, but so's the addict. They didn't want to get back here, right? So when I'm dealing with a family who calls, I say, okay, let's talk about what this looks like with relapse. It's the same in reverse of the first time. Relapse is the reverse part of actually getting sober, meaning you start to see those signs and symptoms.
Yeah,
and
I talked about that today. That's exactly right. Yeah.
All right. And the holidays are brutal. The New Year's brutal. So it makes sense that very often it's seasonal. By the way, for some people, it's tied to 2:00. 2:00 every day I got a drink, and I'm doing great as long as I'm busy at work. And all of a sudden my work slowed down. It's 2:00, and I've got nothing to do, and I'm starting to relapse. So if it's the person who's relapsed, man, we're talking shame.
So
shame
the
spiral.
loved one is right now in active addiction. He is back in it.
Yep.
She's back in it.
Yep. And they're in a shame spiral.
Okay. So what do I do?
So as a loved one, the last thing I want to do is pile on the shame spiral. I don't want to start playing detective again. I don't want to go back to my old habits. I don't want to relapse in my behaviors. What I want to do is offer love. It looks like you're hurting. Tell me how I might be able to help you. You have no idea what you're talking about. I'm sober. I'm fine.
Yeah.
And I tell the loved one, back off, work your own program, get back in therapy, get back in your own code.
Crank it up.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Take care of your loved ones. You would be stunned, and every airline would be stunned, when I ask my clients, when the plane's going down and you're traveling with your loved one who's incapacitated or a child, who gets the air mask first?
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, statistically speaking, that 8 times out of 10, my families say, well, I'm going to put it on my loved one. I'm going to put it on my kid right there. And I look at them with these great big eyes and say, and what happens when you pass out? So when that happens and your loved one's relapsing and you offer love and support and you get rejected, man, that gas mask, put it on yourself, and you got to have self-care because you're back in for the ride, and you stay in your lane and you say, I'm going to work my program. I'm going to make sure that I'm taking care of myself because I can't fix this for this person. And I'm going to be comforted by the fact that if they maintain sobriety for any length of time, I'm going to be comforted by the fact that they have the skills.
Right.
They have the resources. They know where the meeting is. They know where the therapist is. They know where the treatment centers are. They know where Amara is. They know how to talk to me in a healthy way.
Right.
So I actually have less pressure. I sacrificed whatever. In my opinion, it's not a sacrifice. I invested whatever. And now I'm going to work my own program. I'm going to stay in my lane. And I am going to take care of myself because I'm going to remember the 3 C's. Mm-hmm. And those 3 C's are, I didn't cause this, I cannot control this, and I cannot cure it. And if we can remember that, that absolves us from the idea that it's our problem to solve.
Do you know what the 4 C's are?
Tell me.
Have you heard the 4 C's?
Tell me. I may have, but teach me.
Person from Al-Anon taught me this.
Okay.
You didn't cause it. You can't cure it. You can't control it, but you can contribute to it.
Oh, I like it.
You like that?
I like it.
Yeah.
Except we got to take ownership for our own actions.
That's true.
So if I'm the addict and I'm drinking, that's my disease.
That's my role. Yeah.
That's my disease.
That's my role.
And
playing
so we can contribute as the codependent or the Al-Anoner, we can contribute to the solution.
Yeah.
But I think that, again, for me, can't control it, didn't cause it, and I can't cure it.
And that sure does. When we say that, we're able to breathe, and it gives us some hope.
Right.
It gives us some hope. And
not less responsibility.
Yeah. And I want to challenge, the loved ones, the codependents that are out there that are struggling with this, because what happens is our brain goes to the worst. Am I going to get that phone call? That phone call that something has happened. And that's where true sponsorship comes in. That's where having Amara Durham on your team comes in, that you can pick the phone up, call that person, Absolutely. And say, because here's the solution to fear, all right, is we talk about it.
Yes,
we cannot talk about it.
You can't have a real relationship without vulnerability.
Yeah.
They don't exist. Brene Brown, any of her stuff, read it. There is no relationship if we're not vulnerable. Mm-hmm. But being vulnerable means we're talking about the fear. But what's beautiful is when we give voice to fear, it absolutely disempowers the fear.
That's a quote. I like that.
And that's so important. And the other thing I want to remind those families, whether they're in relapse or not, when they're working with me or on their own, is the reality is I can't be responsible for your emotions. I can't take care of yours. Right. I can barely take care of mine. And when we start, do I say this? Do I do that? I'm walking on eggshells. It means I think I can control your emotions. I can
Right.
take care of them. And I can't.
Right.
So all I can do is offer my help, speak in an I feel sentence. I feel terrified you've relapsed.
That's big. Why is that so important? I feel.
Because now I'm not shaming you.
Yes.
And my feelings are my feelings. Rightly or wrongly, you may not debate them. And
That's
boy,
correct.
oh boy, does my loved one love to debate an active addiction. Fat, 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 fat. We want to debate facts. I didn't drink 1, I drank 3. I didn't drink 5, I drank 2.
Yep.
All I want you to hear is how I feel. Because if you hear how I feel, I'm not shaming you. I'm being real. I'm being vulnerable with you. What do you want to do with that? I feel terrified that you've relapsed. I wish, I want, I hope you'll talk to me. You'll go get help. You'll find a meeting. That's the way in which you have a healthy communication. That's the way you don't make someone defensive. And that's the way you say, these are my feelings. You don't have to do anything about them, but I'm sharing them. You've got to understand how I feel because I also have a vulnerability.
So good. Amara Durham Consulting, live right here in studio on M2 The Rock. If y'all really knew the true story of this connection, this relationship, and how all this works, and as y'all know, I don't talk about it. I post about it. My boys. Yeah. And Amara Durham and I, we met a long time ago, and I used to coach your son's soccer. And I was the coach in here in the Park Cities soccer, and both Hudson and Hogan were on the team. And look how God, full circle, how we've come around, and here we are working. And I was fighting this demon then when I met you. I just got back from Betty Ford, and I was trying this thing. And I tell you, this disease is cunning, it's baffling, it's powerful. This disease speaks to me in my own voice, both sides, the codependent and the addict, okay? But most importantly, this disease, the dark side, Satan, whatever we want to call it, here it is very patient. Very patient.
Absolutely. And the problem is that walking into this for families, it's so difficult to navigate this broken system because in crisis, we don't have the luxury of patience. We have to move. And so we're dealing with this patient disease that can rear its head. But man, when it rears its head, we've got to go off to the races. And so when I'm working with families, we're on go. It is go time. And they don't have the ability to do what I can do at my fingertips and reach and pull those resources together. Right. And we haven't even talked about how broken the insurance system is. How do you pay for this stuff?
Right.
It's so difficult. And so where are the resources for the people who don't have the monies? How do we use our monies in a really thoughtful and intentional and strategic way? Because this is a 12 to 18 month journey for anyone.
Yes.
Whether it's with me or on their own. Why? Just because of what you said. You've got holidays, anniversaries, work stresses, where you've got to experience all of those things the first time sober. They're challenging. And until you do it the second time, it's new to you. It's uncomfortable. So there's that element as well, is figuring out where those resources are so you balance great treatment with what you can afford. And sadly, they don't always go hand in hand.
I know. That is another show. We can talk about that. Will you please come back on?
Oh, my gosh.
I love
I
when
would
you
be
come on.
honored.
Good stuff. And thank you, Gangway Advertising, Cynthia Smoot, who put all this together. We appreciate everything that they do for us. And I tell you what, I got 3 words for everyone, and I got 8 letters. It's got 1 meaning. Do you know what that is?
Tell me.
I love you. And I appreciate everything that you do. We'll be back Tuesday, our new hours, Tuesday through Thursday, 7:30 to 8:30 Central Time. Monday, I'll be coming to you live from the field, out in the field, do a little live from there. And on Fridays, I'll be coming to you live from the field, but we'll have an encore show on Mondays and Friday nights. But until now, y'all have a great night. Good night.
Thank you.
2 of the new year. So how are your New Year's resolutions going? For many people, one resolution is to give up alcohol for at least a month. NBC's Vince Sims has more now on what's called Dry January.
Inside 811 Place in Frisco.
It's basically a Cosmo, and then you top it off with sparkling wine.
Bartender and manager Mary Lee has been busy this holiday season.
I would say that it probably starts around the beginning of November.
But for some people, the New Year, New Me mantra means leaving alcohol behind. It's called Dry January. Many people take the month off from alcohol after all the holiday celebrations.
I think the New Year's is always a good time for a new start, a new beginning.
John Edmondson is a licensed professional counselor. He says participating in Dry January can help you assess if you drink too much.
It's a great time to stop and check and see maybe I need to take a step back from that. Taking a month off allows you that opportunity to really have a clear point of view.
He also points out health benefits.
Studies have proven that if you take a month off from drinking, it's really going to improve your health. People begin to lose weight, they feel better, their mind is much more clear. And throughout the year, they tend to drink a little bit less.
More of the restaurants I have, the menus actually have a zero proof section now.
Even though Lee makes a living serving alcohol, she thinks some time off from it is okay.
Because I think people go overboard sometimes, especially during the holidays when you go overboard with eating and all that other stuff. So it's the same thing, just kind of detoxing yourself at the beginning of the year.
During your Dry January, you can find other ways to fill your extra time with other hobbies or exercise. In Frisco, Vince Sims, NBC5.
And a recent poll found 14% of adults plan to take part in Dry January.
When I think of Dry January,
It's weather related.
I think of drought or, lack of snow.
Right.